I don't know whether Catherine's gone off to make a cup of tea anyway.
There you go, Councillor Davis. It started recording, so if you want to start the meeting, you can.
Okay, I'll just yeah, we've got 8 people in the meeting, and so welcome everybody. Just get back on the screen, and it's 6 o'clock, and this is the Billesley Ward Forum, and the meeting is being recorded for the council's YouTube broadcast, so it will be available for those of you who are real suckers for punishment in recorded form. As you know, Ward Forum is an opportunity to for the 2 councillors, in the case of Billesley Ward, to report, and also for us to hear from people in the area and from the local services and other parts of the council on particular issues of interest. I hope you've been able to access the agenda. I'll just mention that we have, I'm pleased to say, Joe Burrell here to talk about the Commonwealth Games Celebrating Communities Fund, and then we've also I'm also pleased to welcome Councillor Sergeant Anne Fern, who is our designated replacement sergeant since Neil Ogden left, but she's not yet, I think, fully able to take up the role, because I think you're recovering from illness at the moment, Anne. But thank you very much for coming along this evening, and we look forward to working with you. Okay, there's Catherine. Okay, well, welcome to the meeting, and my first pleasant duty, apart from obviously mentioning the recording, is to welcome my fellow councillor, my new councillor, Councillor Catherine Ero. Now, if you live in Billesley, of course, you will have known her as Catherine Carlisle from the material that went down when she was elected. And of course, we can all congratulate Catherine, because since then she's got married and she's now Catherine Ero. So welcome, Catherine. And the format of the Ward Forum is that one of us chairs the meeting, so Catherine may very well be chairing the next meeting. But I'm very pleased to be working with her. So welcome. Okay. The item we'd actually got next was to hear from Joe Burrell, Birmingham Community Matters, who's going to explain how the Celebrating Communities Fund, which is a project of the Commonwealth Games, which, as we know, is 2022 next year, how that works, how you can apply for funding, and the type of projects. And I know there are at least one organisation here that's interested in the programme. So over to you, Jo.
Thank you. Am I okay to share my screen? She says that and then wonders how she's going to do it. Yeah, I'll pop a slideshow up, PowerPoint, but I promise not to. I'll talk around it. Can you all see that okay?
Well, I can see it online.
We can, Joe, yeah.
Great, that's lovely. Brilliant. So thank you, Councillor Davis, and thank you for having me here. I'm standing in for John Mole from the City Council, who unfortunately couldn't make it today. So I'll talk to you about what I know about the fund, and if there's any questions, hopefully I can answer them. But if not, I'll go away and get back to Kay and send you an answer. And I'll also send this presentation out via Kay, if that's okay, after the meeting, so you've got something to refer to. Right, so the Celebrating Communities Fund. I'll just do a summary today of what it is and how it's working. We're sort of halfway between 2 rounds of it, so there's been one session and we've sort of done that, and there's some reflection on that, and we're going to begin the next session in the autumn. So Celebrating Communities Fund, it's a fund that is held by Birmingham City Council. It forms part of the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games legacy, and it's around £2 million. I run Birmingham Community Matters, which is a charity that covers Birmingham. Our purpose is to support voluntary and community activity and organisations to start up or to run themselves or to grow if they wish to. Birmingham Community Matters and Locality were successful in the tender to support applicants applicants for the fund. So that's why I'm here today. So we don't administer the fund, we don't in any way appraise or have any decision making powers. We're just there to sort of to be a point of contact for anyone that wants to apply to the fund and to support them in making their application, but then also in managing and monitoring their project after they're successful as well. My colleague Mina from Locality couldn't be here tonight, but it's a partnership that we're working on together. Okay, so I've touched on it already. So Celebrating Communities, it's a fund that for small grants. So the pot of money is around £2 million, but it's been split up between the 69 wards of Birmingham, and it's very much focused on funding small grants, small localized activity, and the purpose of it is to really kind of excite and engage local people around the Commonwealth Games, but also to sort of fit in with what the ward priorities are. So the idea being that it's something that's very much owned by local people and kind of reflects what local people think is important, as well as getting people really fired up about the games. There's another part of it which is to celebrate the sort of diversity of Birmingham and the history of Birmingham, and also those linkages to the Commonwealth that exist in our city. The fund has 3 key themes, and you won't be surprised to hear, are very much linked to the Commonwealth Games and the idea of sort of local activity. So they Get Active, Ready Steady Fun, and Celebrating Culture. The fund is a little bit different, although it might be a familiar format to some of you who have maybe been around a little bit longer in the Ward Forum. If you remember the Local Innovation Fund, that was a fund probably about 3 or 4 years ago, again administered by the Neighbourhood Development Support Unit. But that was the idea of that was very much that local people had a say in how money was spent in their area, and the approach that the Neighbourhood Development Support Unit have took with this is a similar one. So decision making about what projects are funded is made at ward level. There were 2 rounds of funding. Round 1 applications were due in by the 1st of June 2021. And I can tell you there were probably about, across the city, there were probably about 160 applications that were submitted. Some wards had lots, some wards had none. It was from the time the fund opened to the first closing date, it was quite a short period. So there wasn't an expectation that there'd be lots and lots of applications, but there were 160 odd. So you may or may not have been informed at this point about whether there were any made for Billesley. We're working towards round 2 now. So applications will open for round 2 on the 1st of October. And they will be due in by the 30th of November. And we definitely expect a lot more applications in this period in the run up to the games. So decisions for round 2 will probably take place February 2022. So sort of come April, that's when the activity funded in that round will start to be ramping up in preparation for the Commonwealth Games. As I said, the fund's been split over the 69 wards of Birmingham. The formulas used it's a combination of sort of indices of multiple deprivation, population size, and also number of councillors. So Billesley having 2 councillors, there's a total of 35,000 that's been awarded for Billesley Ward. And yeah, so the decision-making process is that projects which meet the criteria, which fit the themes and the local priorities will be put forward to this ward selection meeting. And yourselves and regular attendees of the Ward Forum will have an opportunity to hear from the projects themselves and to decide which projects they think would best fit the area. Okay. So I mentioned about the grant support. So this is Birmingham Community Matters and Locality. So we've been providing support to applicants since April. And we've been running sort of project briefings, grant briefings, one-to-one support for applicants who need a bit more help with their application form. We've started to develop some resources that are sort of fit in the themes of the kind of projects that people are wanting to run. So lots of stuff around sort of events, festivals, looking at people's policies, so safeguarding policies, risk assessments, things like that, and running COVID safe activities. All the information that we've gathered so far, so there's been a lot of frequently asked questions and a lot more of information. It's all on our website at the link given in the presentation. So birminghamcommunitymatters.org.uk/CC for celebrating communities. Not going to read all of this. So the three themes. So get active is the first theme. So you'd be looking at projects that really promote an active lifestyle. It doesn't have to be sports. It can be walking. It can be gardening. It could be anything that gets people out and about and feeling physically active to improve their health and well-being. So it does mention community games and sports days, but anything really that gets people up and about. You know, there's been some quite inventive projects so far. The second theme is Ready, Steady, Fun. So this is very much around getting the area ready for the games. So lots of stuff around making the area beautiful, cleanups, planting projects, you know, decoration projects, craft projects to kind of, you know, bunting and things like that. But then also like street parties and picnics, so things that get neighbours together. And it feels really timely for this. I think it feels, hopefully, that come next spring, you know, all fingers crossed that we'll be in a position where people are really feeling like they feel confident and comfortable coming out and meeting and greeting with each other. And you know, that loneliness and isolation we've been feeling over these pandemic times, it's hopefully a real antidote to some of that. The third theme is celebrating culture. And this is around sort of cultural activities, arts activities. There's a real focus on sort of an honest acknowledgement of Birmingham's legacy and place in the Commonwealth. So very much, you know, histories, unheard histories, bringing art and culture into that. So real opportunity for some of the more creative activities or groups that are engaged in arts, creative, cultural activities to look at some really interesting projects there. For any arts organisations or groups that want to look at a larger project, there is, I should mention, another small grants programme that's being administered separately from this fund, and that is specifically to fund larger creative projects. So if you are interested in that, you can drop me a line or drop the Neighbourhood Development Support Unit a line, and they can get in touch, put you in touch with the right people to speak to about that. Just a quick one on the core criteria. It probably is the people that are here tonight that will be making those decisions on what projects you want to have in your area. So you'll get a better briefing than this, but in a nutshell, obviously it needs to link to the Commonwealth and or the Commonwealth Games. It's projects that are more likely to be linked into what your local priorities are. Will hopefully be more kind of smiled upon more, you know, if they really link in and really understand what the needs of Billesley are and what the things to celebrate and sort of improve upon in Billesley are. So it shouldn't be replacing a lost service. It should be an additional project and really kind of focusing on getting the most out of the games. It's quite interesting actually in the round one, and I wonder whether this is maybe because the information and the guidance didn't come out quickly enough, but we've had lots and lots of applications that don't mention the Commonwealth Games at all. So it's been quite a challenge really to kind of, I don't know if there's maybe an assumption that if it's a sports activity, well, it should be part of the games, but really kind of like making that link and you know, acknowledging what the games are and what the you know, what countries are in the Commonwealth is really important. And yep, so funding can be for anything to cover community activity. It can be core costs and essential running costs, but it can't be business as usual. It needs to be a project specific to this fund. Equipment can be funded. I would say probably that if equipment is asked for, you'd need some kind of activity around that equipment. So if you're asking for a table tennis table, you might want to do some activities around teaching people how to do table tennis, or you know, a table tennis tournament or something like that. It can't just be, I would think probably for just equipment alone, it might not be as high up the list of things that want to be funded. And just a reminder of who's who and who to contact. So Neighbourhood Development Support Unit, our colleagues in Birmingham City Council, they are responsible for administering the fund. So they have the money in their bank account and will be administering it when people are successful. And they do an initial appraisal of the grant applications. So they're looking at eligibility of organisations and that due diligence that they are a voluntary group or a charity or a social enterprise, that they do have a bank account that has more than one signatory, those kind of things. Any inquiries to them, there's their email address. Birmingham Community Matters and Locality. So we're about the support to applicants. If there's any group that you're aware of, they don't have to be a constituted group, might be a group of residents that are interested in doing something, they can apply as well. If they want to have a chat through a project idea, put them in touch with us. There's our webpage and also our email address. And a little bit down the line, or you may have had contact already, you'll be in touch with a local anchor organisation. I would have thought it's probably Moseley Community Development Trust in your area. They will be the independent facilitators of the project selection meetings. So although it will feel like a ward forum and probably look like a ward forum, they will be chairing that meeting and facilitating the decision making and the voting in that. So just to kind of differentiate the different organisations involved. And that is me, I think. Yep. There we go. Right, let me find.
Right.
Hello.
Okay, thank you very much, Jo. Any questions anybody would like to raise about that? We're talking about, I think, oh yes, Linda. You're on mute, Linda. Can people say who they are when they speak, please?
Hi, Linda Batchelor, Moseley Rugby Community Foundation. It said in the presentation that there were ward packs that would be sent out, so we'd be able to identify ward targets and issues and interests. Have they been sent out and have I missed them?
No, you haven't missed it, Linda. Hello, Linda. I've met you a long time ago.
Yes, you did, yes.
If you go to the website, I should have mentioned that in the presentation. If you go to the website, there's a link to the ward packs. So we're holding them on a Google Drive, so you should see yours in there.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yep. That was the only thing.
Okay. I think, Jo, that relates to the ward plan, doesn't it? Those
That's right.
Issues. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. This is something which we have had before at these forums, which obviously the council's put together with the forum, and we've done that. Yeah. Okay. Other questions about this project then? Catherine?
Hi, Jo. Thank you for that. I just wondered whether, as a councillor, whether if I had a great idea in my community, whether I could do an application as well, or whether you have.
Hold on a second. Can everybody mute? There seems to be some interference from other than Catherine. Can everybody mute? Okay, I think that's dealt with it. Sorry, Catherine, to interrupt you. We were doing some interference there.
Oh,
just speak again.
You didn't hear me? Oh, okay. I just want to thank you for that presentation, Jo. That was great. I just wondered whether, as a councillor, if I had a great idea, whether I could put in an application or whether you have to be a non-BCC person.
That's a good question. I think I'll check with NDSU just to double check. If I would have thought that what I'd probably say for an organisation that was part of the ward forum that wanted to put an application in is that they wouldn't get a vote or kind of any input on their own project at the selection meeting. But I'm not sure. I mean, I suppose I'll check actually, but I would have thought that as long as a declaration of interest was declared, you know, any conflicts of interest are declared at the meeting, then it should be okay, and that the organisation was eligible. But yeah, I'll check for you, Catherine. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth.
Okay, thank you for that.
That's great. Thank you, Jo.
We've had a couple of approaches from other organisations about possible projects, and obviously we've directed them to the project. But there's some way to go, isn't there, from what you're saying, Jo, in terms of the timings. But there is that 35,000 there for up for grabs, basically. I think the confusion has been partly that initially, and I suffered from this as well, that I thought you didn't have to make it specifically about the Commonwealth Games, or the category was broad enough in terms of saying, oh, well, it can be sport related, but, you know, but it doesn't have to be, you know, it can be badged with the Commonwealth Games if it's funded, but, you know, it doesn't have to be about the Commonwealth Games. So that's wrong then.
Well, I think it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you've got the games and then you've got the themes.
Yeah.
So, and I think the it says Commonwealth and or Commonwealth Games. So I think if you can make a case that it's bringing people together in the run up to the Commonwealth Games, then that might be enough. And I think actually, because you are making the decisions locally as well, you know, when they come to you, if you think it's a really important, as a group, if you think this is a really important project for our area, but it doesn't have all the flags and all the kind of mention of it, then, you know, if it's come to you in that selection meeting and you approve it, then it will go forward. But yeah, it does exist as one of the criteria that it needs at least a mention.
Okay, we'll bear that in mind. Linda?
Yes, we've actually submitted an application to run a Commonwealth Games project and sports day for local primary schools, and we submitted it, I think, for the first round before the deadline. What's the process for us now? I think we've had some confirmation that we've got through the sort of desktop assessment, and it is now down to the forum meeting, but we're not sure whether or when that will take place. We're not looking to run it until next June, but we were in for the first tranche of funding.
Yeah.
Could you?
Yeah, I cannot. I think. So any day now, I think the councillors should get an email from Lorna at Moseley Development Trust. They're arranging the project selection meetings. The project selection meetings need to take place for round one before the end of September. Obviously, we're moving into the summer holidays now, so I think come mid-September, there's going to be a lot of project selection meetings across the city. So the councillors should any day now have some contact from their facilitator to set a date, and then you'll be informed of when the date is. We are running some sessions, which I'm sure you won't need actually, Linda, because you're very good at presenting, but we are running some sessions for any groups that want a hand with just running through their presentation. You'll need to do about a 3 to 5 minute kind of spiel at the meeting, just explaining exactly what you did there, really, what the project is and what the benefits are.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else got any questions for Jo? Good to hear that there is already one submission, and that comes before, well, us basically, not just the councillors. The forum looks at that. in due course. So we'll try and promote the next forum, whichever date it is around that, to more people. Okay, I think, is that it then? If that's all the questions to Jo, can I thank Jo very much for her presentation.
Brilliant.
I think that's given us very good insight into what's available, and I think it's a very exciting possibility around linking Billesley to the Commonwealth Games.
Brilliant.
Good. Okay, Jo. So if you want to sign off,
I'll send the presentation
online. But thanks very much for your assistance this evening.
Lovely. Good to meet you all. Have a good meeting. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay. We're next on to local issues. What I'd like to do is just move this around, because obviously we're fortunate to have Sergeant Anne Fern with us, and so she can go if she wants. Perhaps we'll deal with the policing item first on that. This is a general item, though, where we can raise any issues. We've just put a couple of themes down around councillors' reports. Catherine, did you want to come in on your recent meeting with Inspector Geiss? Where's Catherine gone?
Sorry, Phil, just say that again.
Did you want to come in? I've just said we moved to the policing item. Did you want to come in on your recent meeting with Inspector Geiss, and then I'll ask Anne to say a few words.
Right. Let me just get my notes. Give me a second.
We've had contact with our local inspector, Inspector Geiss, and I wasn't able to get to the meeting, but
I did type it all up, so let me just find it. Okay, yeah, so I had a great meeting with Inspector Geiss. We met for 2.5 hours. So we talked about speeding cars, boy racing. He said that that's an issue across Birmingham, and that people need to report it to the police when they see it, ideally get a registration number. They said the more reports that they get, the more it will be prioritised by the police in the area. So it's really important to report it every time. So you can, obviously it's unlikely to be a 999, so you can report it either online using their incident report or using 101, but he said 101 takes ages, so it's probably best to do it on their online incident reports. And or you can email the Billesley email address. The next thing we talked about was the motocross bikes, so the illegal, unlicensed bikes that ride around the place. Sorry, my baby's talking. So those are illegal except on private land with the landowner's permission. So people shouldn't be doing that. So again, if you see it, you need to report it. And again, the more reports, the more it will be prioritised. And they said that they're not allowed to chase them because obviously that could be dangerous for the rider and other members of the public. Okay, so then we talked about drugs, and he said that drug use fuels the majority of crime in the area, people committing burglaries and such to fund their drug habits, and obviously also people selling drugs. Again, he said people need to report it. He said he knows that people are baby, that people are.
You're being barracked there, aren't you?
Obviously, you know, scared to report issues, you know, in case they get targeted or something. So he said that people, if they want to remain anonymous, should use Crime Stoppers, and that is completely anonymous and comes through to the police after 24 hours. He raised something to me that I didn't know about called stash cars. So apparently, though, if you notice a stationary car parked on the side of the road that's always there, and that people are coming to and from all the time to like get things out of, then that could be people stashing drugs in the car, and then people just come to the car to get the drugs to then sell. So yeah, report that if you see it. Yeah, I raised because lots of residents raised like loud music and stuff to me, and I thought that was a police issue, but he said it's a council issue and needs to report it to environmental health. So there we go. And then the other thing he talked about was domestic abuse, which sadly he said that Birmingham receives 50 to 80 call-out offences every day. So that's like one per ward, isn't it, really, like per day, which is absolutely shocking. He said, again, obviously people might not be happy to report it to the police, but they should be encouraged to report it to the police, or at least see a doctor, or at the very least take photos of their injuries that can be used in the future. So yeah, it was really interesting meeting, and he talked a lot about we talked a lot about antisocial behaviour in the area, and he said that there's a group of young people who've been identified by the police and other workers. There's a multi-agency approach to try to get these young people out of a life of crime involving, youth services and schools and everything. And parents are, on the whole, very supportive of the police involvement. That was really, really great to know. So they're working really hard to try to, stop these young boys and girls from getting into a life of crime. So that was really good news. They also talked about CCTV. So the police have access to CCTV cameras, and Inspector Dice has managed to get one for Billesley, so that's going to be put up in a permanent location. I don't know whether I'm allowed to say, so I'm going to Sergeant Anne says that I can say, then I will. But yeah, so in the hope of I don't know, catching people, stroke being a deterrent, I don't know which one it is, but that's really good news for us. So hopefully that will reduce the antisocial behaviour and catch people doing it. So that's it was a really great meeting. Really thanks Inspector Dice for meeting me.
Okay, thank you, Catherine, for that summary up. What I do is go to Anne then. I mean, none of that will be, I'm sure, news to you, Anne, but if you'd like to, chance to introduce yourself, obviously, as the new sergeant, and pick up on any comments you wish to make on any of those issues or anything else. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I started off at Billesley in January '98, so I've done a full circle. And 23 years later, I'm back at Billesley as a sergeant. I've been a sergeant for 4 years. I've been in the city centre for the last 8 years, which is very different to residential neighbourhood. You get a different kind of complaint because you've got a lot of licensed premises, so it's back more the residential side. I've only been with the team a week, so they know more about Billesley than I do at the moment, but I have picked little things up. So I'm just really keen to get sort of things improved in the residents and sort of get to know everybody and see what we can do. I know Neil was with the Billesley team for 8 years, so he's probably made some significant progress. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Catherine, I didn't hear the first thing that you mentioned on your list. Was it cloning cars? I'm sorry.
I think it was
toy racing, speeding cars.
Speeding cars.
Yeah.
Toy racing, yeah.
We've had some incidents. Down School Road particularly, we had a bad incident with a car that crashed through the barriers into the pool in Trittyford Mill pools. I think there was a bit of a chase going on. So that is something that happens from time to time, which is concerning, obviously, and it's not really a sort of speed bumps issue. It's more a criminal issue, isn't it, really?
I mean, in relation to speed races, I mean, if it's a common problem, we could look at getting some sort of ANPR sort of operation. I don't know whether you've done anything like that before.
ANPR?
Well, it's just like a traffic operation, so you can stop people, recognise the number plates. You may be able to sort of like stop anybody if they've got any sort of like intelligence on the vehicles. It can be a deterrent because obviously it's that visible presence with the police. We could look at something like that.
Yeah, well, something we'd like to discuss further, I think, yes, because obviously we used to have regular meetings with Neil, and when we were meeting face to face, and then we would also have meetings in different parts of the ward where there were particular issues. So, you know, in due course, I'm sure we could do a bit of that. So thank you for that.
So yeah, so with the boy racing, I mean, it's quite a significant problem across Birmingham. I did work on, I think it was, we had the big ride outs that were on the Warwickshire boundaries, like what we called Operation Wraith Bane. I worked on that for about 6 months, and they started to identify bits and pieces of the vehicles and take the vehicles and that. But I think with this, it may be something that we can look at if we've got any intelligence on the number plates and put section 59s on, so it's sort of like it's a warning, and if they get stopped again, we can take the car off them. But being new to this, I don't know whether they're identified or not, or whether they haven't got any number plates, so I'll have to rely on yourself to tell me sort of exactly what the issues are there.
Catherine?
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, Nick guys also said, which I forgot to read out, that if residents are interested, there's an opportunity to be part of the Speed Watch Community Initiative, where members of the public are trained to use like a speed gun.
Okay.
And then like the speed gun's brought out to you and you can stand there and use it. And I was like, wow, that sounds fun. So that's, yeah, so if you're interested, then you email the Billesley police email address, and they can train you up. And I was like, wow, I want to do that.
I mean, it's definitely an option if it, you know, to give it a go. So yeah, I'm up for it if everybody else is. It's just trying to sort of get everything in play and get to sort of everything, knowing what the crime issues and antisocial behaviour issues are in Billesley at the moment as well. So, you know, we'll do what we can. We have got a small team because we have got some sickness, long-term sickness, and some of our officers are covering for demand at the moment. So we're very dependent on our PCSOs covering a lot of the work at the moment, and they are working hard to sort of try and make a difference.
We had some successful joint work done, the council and the police, a few months ago. Well, it was in lockdown on Braceby Avenue where there have been problems. I know that has featured in terms of the local community safety partnership, which I sit on, and there's some good work being done there. So you know, if the council and the police can cooperate, which we did. For example, there was a car parts, unofficial car parts business being run from white vans there, and we managed as the council obviously to finger that along with the police, and you know, we've been able to clean up some parts of the area and so on. So there are things that can be done working together, and I'm grateful for the cooperation we've had from the police on that. Let me ask if anybody's got a question now. Any questions to Anne? No, not at the moment. So but I think, Anne, the message you're saying to us, as ever, is as your predecessor did, is, you know, if there's an issue, make sure it's logged, because you can't really act on it, you know, unless that is the case, can you really? And you need to know from either the online logging or 101, and you know, and we've got the details for all the contacts that those things are going on. So I always say to people, look, log it, you know, get it into the system, because then you know where the pressures are, and you're more likely to be able to argue for resources to do something about it. So we do try and recognise the pressures you're under. I've got a question from Linda Batchelor. Linda?
It's actually Derek.
Derek. Sorry, Derek. Yeah.
I'm from Motorcycle Community Foundation as well. It was just a question about where can we find information, where we're going to report it. Is it advertised at all in the local shops, or are there flyers around there so the local residents know where they can get you know, where they can send you the information to?
Everything's online. So if you go to West Midlands site, everything will be online and it will be directed to the appropriate teams.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether it was advertised in the local shops, that's all, and
For people who don't have computers or don't have confidence in going online. We work a lot with people like that who don't know how to do those sorts of things and don't have the confidence to do it. So, you know, they still rely on good old paper posters or paper leaflets to give them that information or a phone number. So
we can look at whether we can get some leaflets, it's accessible to everybody. And you know, I am some people don't like computers.
Yeah.
I think we're getting a bit of an echo on your signal, and the point you were making was that you could look at old-fashioned methods of publicising the numbers. We've got the details. I mean, 101, there is actually an extension number which you can ask for, which goes to the Billesley team. 101's been rightly criticised, but it does actually offer an alternative if you use that extension number. So we've got those details as councillors as well. But it's a good point. We could look at that, couldn't we? Because, as you say, not everybody can go online or wants to do it that way. And anything else you want to say then?
No, it's just as you said, the more that you report about a specific problem, the more reports you get, the more likely we are to act on it. It's not that we don't want to act on other things, but you know, things take priority, unfortunately. If it's something quite significant, which is the councillor said, like Braceby Avenue, I mean, looking at that will be ongoing at the moment, so that's something that will continue. But yeah, I mean, I'm keen to make an impression. I'm new to the team, so I want to work for you and make sort of the area safe and as crime-free as possible. We'll never get it perfect, but I'm sort of, the intention is there to do the best we can.
Okay, well, thank you. And when are you likely to be fully able to be in post?
I'm hoping it will be about 6 weeks. It's tendonitis in my hip.
Oh, right.
I am doing my physio every other day because I'm desperate to get out of the office.
Yeah.
And have to wander around myself. So hopefully it shouldn't be too long. I've got my next appointment on the 9th. You never know, I might get something fit. So fingers crossed.
Okay. Well, best wishes for that, and thank you very much for being able to participate this evening. It's very good to just say hello, put a name to a face, and all that.
Yes.
And we look forward to further sessions where we can do it either this way or in person. But that's been very helpful. Thank you. If you're very welcome to stay for any other business, but you don't have to, obviously. We got a couple of other things down on the list, really. One was planning issues. We've got a couple of issues we put in objections on. 5G mast, Fittyford Road. This is a proposal for the obviously development of a 60-foot mast. And we've said that we don't think this is the appropriate location. We've supported objections which suggest it might be put elsewhere near Fittyford Road. I mean, for example, the bottom of the road by the traffic island, which is further away from the houses. And, you know, we all need 5G masts. It's the next rollout of the technology. But we're supporting residents saying, look, to the planning committee, can you look at the site, get the company concerned to look at the site. And then we've also been involved with an application for a new block of flats down Charlecott Close. I know Bob Laws is with us tonight, one of the residents affected, and we're objecting to that because we just think will have a negative impact on the general site. You know, it's quite constricted, and putting another block in there is not going to have a positive benefit, I think. So our general policy is, obviously we don't get involved with every planning application, but we do see most of them, certainly the ones in Billesley, and you know, where there are particular community concerns, then we will have a look at that and try and represent you know, the reasonable views of local residents. Bob, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about the application down your end of the ward. You're on mute, Bob, I think. Still can't hear you. I think he's going to get some technical assistance, like this problem I have. Catherine.
Yeah, hi. So we sent out a letter to all the local residents, delivered by the wonderful Bob Laws there, and so thank you, Bob. Just informing them about it and letting them know that was happening and that we were, you know, against it in principle and wanting to know their ideas, because obviously using their local knowledge. And I've heard back from several local residents who are also objecting and have entered their objections. So,
Okay.
and I've contacted the chair of planning to ask her advice on how we can go about our objection.
Okay, Bob, I think.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. Well, it's only to add that it isn't only the outlook, the fact that the flats will be sort of right at the back of people's gardens in Billesley Road. That's certainly a point, and it'd be a very poor outlook in terms of a two-storey block of flats right at the back of people's houses. That will also impact on people in the place Charcot place itself. But it's also that there was a kind of a green corridor there, and the previous plan had at least, I mean, it was less of an impact because it was only a one-storey block of flats, and it was angled in such a way that it wouldn't impose on too many people, and it was surrounded by shrubs and, you know, green, you know, I mean, sort of general greenery, whereas this plan does away with all that. It's 2 blocks of 2-storey flats, and it appears no green shrubs or anything to sort of camouflage the outlook. So 2 lots of 2-storey flats and a big car park with no real green area.
Okay, thanks, Bob. So obviously that will go to the planning committee. We're not on the planning committee, but clearly, you know, we're trying to do our job in reflect local views, and I hope that's helpful. But again, thanks to Bob for getting that leaflet out, because that's the way we can communicate, yeah. Isn't it? Really? Thanks a lot for that, Bob.
Okay.
Okay. I've got an item on housing and particularly unregulated hostels. I wonder if I could bring Catherine in on this one again. Catherine?
Sorry, Phil, baby was crying then. What was it?
It was unregulated hostels, whether you wanted to say something about that.
Yeah, so obviously been working with Steve McCabe MP and Sharon Thompson, Cabinet Member for Housing, about the unregulated houses. So hostels, they're often called HMOs, but obviously HMOs is houses of multiple occupation, which can be, you know, just totally normal, you know, shared, you know, houses like student houses and things like that. So HMO is almost the wrong term for it, really. So the main issue is called exempt accommodation, where companies take the council's money to provide support to the vulnerable people who are housed in these exempt accommodations, but there's very little, if no, regulation on them. So some of them are providing excellent support to their vulnerable residents, and some of them are providing no support to their vulnerable residents, which is causing obviously issues not only to the vulnerable residents but also to their neighbours. So it's really important, if you think that there's one in your area, that you refer it to the council or to us, and we can refer it so that it can be looked into. So one has just been raised to me this week on School Road by a resident there. They think that there's one there and they're really concerned you know, about the impact on the area and the residents, obviously. So yeah, so I'm looking into that with the housing department team to find out whether it is and what can be done.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. Yeah, the problem is we don't, as a council, get notification. There is actually a procedure for the separate housing multiple occupation, but the unregulated hostels is a bit of a racket, they come under regulatory terms. They come under the social housing regulator, and although they've issued some stern words about it, you know, they're not on the ground in the way the council is. So we're just trying to map this problem where it exists. And as Catherine says, support the work of the cabinet member, our colleague, obviously at the council, who's doing a lot of national work on this, including a national petition and lobbying ministers to bring in new regulations that would give us control in the area. So watch this space, basically. Okay, I think we're on to other. So was there anything else anybody else wanted to raise for us to pick up, or basically just any issues really of concern? Somebody's raised their hand. Was that you, Bob?
No.
Maybe it was what they call Sergeant Fern.
Yeah. Where are these hostels? Whereabouts are they?
Well, you see, we don't automatically know. We did because we're not notified as the council, but we find out, and we found a couple when we were during the election campaign. We were knocking doors because people complained to us about the antisocial behaviour or the lack of support for the people who live there, because often they're people with maybe mental health problems or addiction problems, and they're not getting the support they need. So really, we would like to develop you know, a map of where they are, and we think there are at least 3 in the ward at the moment. And we've got a couple of addresses for those, but and again, the MP is trying to map them for the Selly Oak constituency and then feed that obviously to the council. But that's the problem, Anne. You know, we've got no formal notification here, and neither does the regulator have that. I know your was it the Deputy Chief Constable was taking a very active line on this because he was very concerned at what was happening in terms of the call on police resources, wasn't he? And the way these hostels were being set up to make money, basically, just taking the housing benefit without providing the support for the vulnerable people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like you say, there's no sort of governance over it. The concern is the antisocial behaviour, and also not just the people that live there, the people that they're going to be inviting into the residents as well from afar. And that's where my concern was, because we need to keep an eye on what's developing there so that it doesn't get out of hand. And
yeah, well, we're happy to share our information as to where we know these places are, and that'd be helpful to us as well, because obviously you can keep an eye on them as we try to. You know, we respond obviously to local people's complaints. There's certainly one in Beecham Road, and as Catherine said, this one we've recently come across in School Road, so we'll furnish the addresses on that.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? We're actually into the open forum anyway, where you can raise anything. If there's anything you want to raise with us as the councillors. I should just say that our role at the council, because we both sit on particular committees. My role is as chair of licensing and public protection. So obviously I'm sitting on a committee that deals with a lot of issues around enforcement and regulation, which is quite helpful often. On some of the environmental health stuff and so on, and we also determine licensing decisions. Not many in Billesley though, because of course we don't have many licensed premises, but we do have a few, and obviously, and I declare an interest actually as the local councillor, and other colleagues determine these, but of course I'm entitled to make representations on that. So that, along with heritage issues, is one of my main things. And then Catherine, can you remind us which committee you're on? I think she was feeding the baby.
Yeah, sorry, feeding baby currently. I'm on the Education Scrutiny Committee. fascinating. Lots of it's obviously my passion because I'm a teacher and been a teacher since then. Started training in 2006, so for ages now, 15 years. Yeah, so I'm really excited to be on the education committee and trying to be the critical friend of the officers working in the local authority to try to get the best for our children. The current main problem is special education needs. So if you're aware, they had a Ofsted a few years ago, about 3 years ago, that said that Birmingham was failing its special educational needs provision, and the council was given 2.5, 3 years to improve with 13 targets. Well, they came again in May, and they found that Birmingham have only made progress in sufficient progress in one of those 13 targets. So there has been progress in the other 12, but not sufficient in Ofsted's eyes. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I've only just been allocated to that since my election in May. So I'm really pleased to be on the education committee, where I feel like I can make a real positive difference for all.
And you may have seen in the media that the result of that poor Ofsted is that the cabinet member has resigned, Councillor Booth, I mean, it's a disappointing situation to say the least, but clearly it's not good enough. And you know, and of course, along with other colleagues in the Labour group, we've been demanding answers and saying, look, there must be some action to tackle this. We have a new director who's coming, so we're hopeful that he'll be able to turn a number of these issues around, and that must happen, obviously. So you know, we get that information and obviously pass on the local view. Okay, I think it's an hour now, 7 o'clock, so we'll be able to close, and if you're a fan, listen to the Archers. But anyway, usual final words. Thank you very much for participating, and if you want anything on this agenda, by all means, just drop me an email, and we're very happy to facilitate that. And again, can I thank our guests, Joe Burrell on the Commonwealth Games, and also particularly Sergeant Anne Fern, who has been with us all through the meeting, and we look forward to working with Anne in the future. But thank you very much, everybody, for your contributions. We couldn't do the meeting without you. Okay, so
right, thanks a lot then. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Kay, for organising.